My name is Thomas Watt, and my partner is Kelsey Chia. This is for Communication Skills 110 at Malone University. Today is April 10th, 2014, and my interviewee is...
Amber Neading. It's Amber.
Alright, so why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, give us a little bit of background.
I am a senior here at Malone. I'm a history and political science major, and I graduate in 3 weeks. Planning on law school, and yeah. Anything else?
No, that's good. So I understand you've went on some pretty exciting trips. So will you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about your trips, where you went, what you did?
Yeah. My freshman year here at Malone, it was spring break 2011, and I went with Malone on a service learning trip to Poland. Dr. David Intwistle and Dr. Jackie Welling were the leaders on that trip. I think there were 14 other Malone students that went. And while we were there, we traveled to Krakow, Dąbrowa Górnicza, and Warsaw. And most of the trip was really like historical based. We did a little bit of service projects. We went to a high school and worked in their English classroom, and we did some community service at a church. We spent some time with members of that church and really got to know like the culture. But most of it was going to museums that pertained especially to World War II and the Holocaust. And we went to some palaces, some cathedrals, and then we spent some time at Auschwitz concentration camp. And then this summer of 2012, I took my first trip to Haiti, and then I've been there 5 times. So I went in summer of 2012, December 2012, May 2013, December 2013, and spring break 2014 with 10 other Malone students. When I'm in Haiti, I go to an orphanage. There's between 100 and 120 kids there. See the same kids there every time. Yeah, and we spend time in the orphanage, work with the kids, do whatever service we can around there. And I've gotten some time to know people in the village as well. So I've seen a lot of the country of Haiti and engaged in the culture the best I can there.
So you said your trip for Poland was just a service learning trip. Did that happen in any special way, or was it just something you decided you want to go on and just went on?
It's actually my freshman year. The girl that lived next door to me, Karen Cummings, had asked me if I would go to the service learning meeting for her because she had something else going on. No idea what the heck she was talking about. And she was like, can you just get some information for me? I really want to go to Poland. And I knew absolutely nothing about Poland. I knew it was in Europe. And then I realized that it was like everything that happened in the Holocaust and World War II, like a lot of that was based in Poland, and it's something I'm really interested in. And so I went to the meeting for her and decided that I too was going to go to Poland. And so did the application process, was selected. The application process, you do an application, you answer some essay questions, and then you do an interview with different trip leaders from Malone. And I was selected to go. And Karen and I went together. It was really exciting. My first trip out of the country, first airplane ride. Yeah, and I'd always wanted to go to Europe, and so it was the opportunity to get to go to Europe, and I really love history. So it seemed like the perfect trip for me. It's funny, I hadn't really told my parents that I was even applying for this. No, I didn't tell them at all. I just decided I was going, and so my mom came up to visit me, and on my dry erase board, Karen had written, Amber and Karen are going to Poland. And my mom was like, Amber, you're going to Poland? I was like, actually, I am. And I showed her the letter that said I'd been accepted to go. So that's how my parents found out I had decided I was going to Poland. So that's how that came about.
Were your parents upset about that? Or were they excited? Or?
No. They were like really excited for me. I think they knew that I'd always wanted to travel. It was just something I hadn't done yet. And so the opportunity had come up, and really like Malone Service Learning, you do a lot of fundraisers, and you kind of get like this group deal. So it's not overly expensive. And so it was just like this really great opportunity to get to go with professors that I had in class, and do it with my best friend, and to get to know other Malone students. Well, my parents were really excited about it for me, especially my mom, because she has a similar love for history, and she's been to Europe as well. So it was something that she was excited about.
And you said you went to 3 major cities in Poland. What were they again?
Krakow, Dąbrowa Górnicza, and Warsaw.
So what were some of the like kind of more in-depth things that you did in these cities, things that stuck out to you, whether you liked them, didn't like them, just more specifics about what you did in each city.
Yeah. Well, I guess to start off, we had a lot of food in each of those cities, and the food was amazing. Sometimes I still just really miss like the Polish food because it was great. But I don't know. I guess I just remember like as soon as we get into Poland, like we pull into the square in Krakow, and it is just simply gorgeous. I don't know. It's just like picture perfect of what I had pictured Europe to look like. And the thing about Krakow is it is the oldest city, like still completely intact. It was where the Germans stayed during World War II, and so they didn't destroy the city. It's like it is the only one that wasn't, like nothing happened to it during World War II. So there's just a lot of history there. We got to go into the square and we did some shopping there, and it's really just gorgeous. There's big clock towers there in the city hall. There's horse-drawn carriage rides that you can take through the city. I don't know, it's great. Little street vendors, coffee shops everywhere. Our first night there, we should have been exhausted from traveling 14 hours, but we decided we'd go to this little coffee shop, and I got hot chocolate there, and it was just pure melted chocolate, and it was just astounding. And so those are the sort of things we did. I also, while we were in Krakow, we went to a cathedral, and again, just like the historic relics there of the Catholic Church, and they kind of explained the church history there, which was interesting because I just didn't really know. Catholicism is like your primary religion in Poland, and so it's a place where a lot of people go. And then we went to a palace there as well. I mean, obviously, like no king or queen lived there; it's just a tourist attraction. So that was Krakow. I think we only spent like 2 days there. Everything was pretty quick just because we were only there for a week and we had a lot of places to hit up. In Dąbrowa Górnicza, we stayed at a church. The pastor there is Pastor Yarek, and there we just helped clean up around the church. And so that was fun. We got to worship with the people there, and that was just a really cool experience. That was my first time ever being in a place where the primary language wasn't English, and so that was the first time where I had experienced worship in another language. And so as they were singing hymns in Polish, I could sing the same hymns in English, and that was the first time that I was just really in awe of the fact that like I can't understand the person worshiping next to me, but God hears that worship. And so that was just a really cool experience, and just kind of really opened my eyes to like how big God is. And I think that has led through a lot of my development through college. Just that like that one experience in the church there. And then Sunday after church, we got to go, people from the congregation invited us into their home. And so I went with a woman, her name was Barbara, and her husband, and they had us in their home, and they were just really hospitable. They wouldn't let us walk in their home barefoot, so they like gave us their slippers to wear. Like just, it was great. And it was like this interesting experience of, in the US, when you have company over, you usually like entertain them in some way, like you watch TV or you play cards, like something to entertain them. But we sat at the table for 5 hours and we just talked. And so that was a really cool experience. And again, like they really explained like the history there. And where they lived was in like a communist complex, because after World War II, the communists had taken over that area. And so just really learning what life has looked like from the progression of World War II to communist Poland to today. And that was really interesting. We also, Barbara and her husband took us to a castle there that the Polish military had hidden when the Germans took over. So that was just another really cool experience. Again, we had some really great hot chocolate there. I remember hot chocolate. And then we also, while we were at the church, we went to the Auschwitz concentration camps. We spent a day there. We visited Auschwitz and Birkenau. And then, which I assume we'll probably talk about that later. And then went to Warsaw. And while we were at Warsaw, gosh, what did I do in Warsaw? We toured the city. It's stunning. It's just gorgeous. Yeah, I just remember walking around the squares like with my head in the air, like just could not believe that's where we were. We also, when we were there, we went to college, which was another really, really cool experience. Just interacting with students the same age as me, and learning what university looked like in Poland versus the U.S. And it's really pretty different. Like, students don't live at the college that they go to, and many of them don't travel far from home. Most of them take the train in every day. So it was just interesting, but also really interesting to see like our different social lives. But that was cool. And then we did go to the Warsaw Uprising Museum. I don't remember much of it at that point. Like, it was just one more Holocaust experience, and by that time we had done something related to the Holocaust every single day. So we were pretty emotionally, spiritually, like mentally, and even physically dry. Like, we just really didn't have much left to give. But again, it was just a really cool experience, and kind of just soaking in all the history, because not only was like, no longer were we reading the history, but we were there where it was taking place, and so just alive and well.
You kind of hit on it at the end there, and I was just thinking about it. Like, we learn about World War II and these concentration camps and things like this every year in history.
Mm-hmm.
We see pictures of it out of the book. We read text about it. But what's it like to actually be there, be where it happened, compared to just reading about it?
Yeah, I guess I didn't say that when we were in Krakow. We went to a Jewish quarter, and we ate at a Jewish restaurant, and a Jewish band played. And that was like the first night there, and already like our tour guide showed us just different places, like even like Schindler's List had been filmed there, but this Jewish quarter had been like completely empty during World War II. Like, they came in and took all of the Jewish people out of there and took them to ghettos, and so we're here in this place like touring it and realizing that like 60 years ago, like horrific things happened to the people that lived there. And even today, this like Jewish quarter only is 10% Jewish, just because people didn't return, because it brought back painful memories. And so that was like my first experience of realizing like, this is not something that happened just in the history books. Like, this is still affecting people in their lives now. And not only that, but I don't know. I think it also brought to life, like, this did not happen that long ago. Like, our grandparents, some of them can remember World War II. And so to realize, like, all of a sudden, just really put it into perspective. Like, this didn't happen that long ago. And then we move into the concentration camps, and the first thing that happened when we were there is we walked into the camp, and there's the gate, and it says, "Work will set you free," but it's in German, but I don't remember it. Yeah. And the tour hadn't started yet, so we went into the first. Each barrack is now a museum, and so we walked in the first part of the museum, and that part isn't part of the tour, so it's something you do on your own. And I just remember seeing pictures of people, and the one that really struck me was it was a college, like a picture of students and professors, and recognizing that that was my group. We were a group of students with our professors, and they were in the camps because they were intelligent and they were a threat to the Third Reich. And so I think that really was like, well, what if this was me? What if this was my friends? And so you really have to start putting yourself there. But probably the thing that really struck me the most was they had the uniforms that they wore, and they had them standing up like on mannequins, and it just covered this whole room, just as this representation of like all these people that wore this uniform and died in this place. And then for me, that was the first moment where I was like, okay, I'm going to walk through this place and realize that every single room that I walk in, people were tortured, they were hungry, they were beaten, and in the end they died. Families were destroyed, lives were completely ruined, and those who did live would never ever be the same. And I'm walking through this, and like all of a sudden it was not something that happened in a book. This is people, and that was really just the first experience. And as soon as we left, we walked in and we watched a movie about what happened there. And there was a student intern with the missionaries that we were with there, and Jonathan was from Canada, and he had been to Auschwitz before, and he's like, Amber, like, what do you like? How are you feeling about this? We hadn't even started the tour, and I was like, Jonathan, like, I'm just numb. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. Like, am I supposed to cry? Am I supposed to just do this? Like, I don't know what to feel. And he was like, that's okay. He was like, He's like, it's okay if you don't know how to feel. He's like, and you might not know how to feel for a while. And so we go through each barrack, and like I said, each barrack represented a different place. And I don't know, just to be in these rooms where, like, there's one room where it was a starvation room, and that's what they did to torture. And then there's the whole children's barrack. And probably the thing that really struck me the most is they have all the shoes. And again, those belong to someone. But I've worn glasses since I was 8. And if I don't have my glasses or my contacts, like, I can't see anything. And it's really, like, just really hard when I don't. And so they have all these glasses there because they took people's glasses from them. And all I could think was, like, I would not survive without mine. Like, I can't do anything if I don't have my corrective lenses. And so, like, did these people die right away? Like, it's just really putting yourself in the situation. And there's a little girl's doll. And that was when I realized, like, here's a child's toy. Like, a little girl brought this doll in and it was taken from her. What happened to the child that owned this doll? And so again, it's just constantly putting yourself in these positions. And then you walk in this one barrack, and all it is every single wall just has pictures of inmates. And it has their names, and it has their occupation, where they're from, and it has their birth date and the date of their death in the camp. And that was a moment where I just kind of stood there. And I think that was the first time that I just started to cry. And I didn't really know why. Like, I didn't know what to do with it. It was just simply, like, looking at all the different occupations. Like, the names mattered, but it was the occupations because, again, like, I was putting myself in these. Like, you know, there's a carpenter. My dad's a carpenter. Like, what if this was my family? And so we walk through this whole thing, and then you walk into the gas chambers and the crematorium, and then you walk out. And that was the hardest moment of the entire thing, to realize that I walked in and I walked out, but those who lived through that walked in, but they never walked out. And that was just the hardest thing. And I made it through most of it just very numb. Like, I didn't know what emotions to, like, I didn't know how to feel about it. But the whole time I just kept thinking, like, I am walking where people walked. Like, I am, for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it was, I'm walking where they walked, and I'm going through each room that they went through. And it was just bizarre, and it was a cold, dreary day, and I was hungry, and my feet were cold. And, like, that really just brought it into perspective for me, like, these people were hungry, and they were cold, but their situation was so much worse, and I walked out. And when I walked out, that was when the emotion just completely washed over. And I think that was a moment where I realized that history matters. Because I start to think, like, one of the things the tour guide said was the SS men and women, they were fathers, they were mothers, they were sons, they were daughters, like, whatever. They went home at the end of the day and they kissed their family. And that was, I think, for me, the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like, these people were normal people. They were ordinary men with the capacity to do great evil. And so I think that was when I really had to start processing, like, what does that say about human nature? Like, what am I capable of when I'm put in that situation? And so one of the quotes that was on the board said, like, if you don't remember your history, like, it will repeat itself. And so for me, I think when I left Poland, like, I changed my major to history because I was like, this matters. Like, it's not something that happened in the past. Like, it is alive now, and it is affecting people's lives, and people still remember this. And Pastor Yark, who was there, like, he still hated the Germans because he had family that had been killed in this. Like, he was affected generations later. And again, like, you see injustice in the world today, and so, like, injustice is still happening, and people are still capable of really horrible like, injustice. And so I think that was the thing that was most memorable for me, and what that was like to walk through a place, to just relive history right there, and to walk through Birkenau and see where Birkenau was the largest death camp. Auschwitz main camp was a work camp. It was horrific, but most people just worked. Like, a lot of them didn't die in that one. Birkenau was basically right across the street. And when they came off the trains, some of them stayed, but most of them went straight to the gas chambers. And So to just be in this place, walking like in their bathrooms and their barracks and seeing their beds, like just all of these things, like you're just overwhelmed with, here it is. And so just reliving that history and just taking weeks upon weeks to process that. Still processing that. Yeah.
So you said it took you a long time, like you didn't know what to feel. How long did it take you to figure out some of the stuff? I know you just said like some of it you're still processing, but how long did some of this take to really not only hit home but start to make sense?
Well, I'm not sure that it will ever make sense to me, simply because like being there just makes everything that happened more real, and I can't understand the injustice. Like I just don't understand the capacity to do such horrible things to people. But it was really coming back and talking to professors like Jackie Welling, or talking to Celia King in campus ministries while she was still here at Malone, and just really learning like how God cares about justice, and how like God is in injustice and it breaks his heart, and he cares for these people. And so I think part of like this processing for me was really starting to care about justice myself, because I realized like I don't want to see this sort of thing happen. Like I do not want to pretend that this does not happen in the world, because it is happening now. I mean, there's civil war, there's things like Syria, like the Syrian crisis, or what's going on in Ukraine. Like there's injustice right now. And so I don't want to be ignorant to those things. I don't want to pretend that they don't exist. And I think the biggest thing is what's the next step? Because so often, like when I left Poland, I was like, okay, this happened. No one did anything. And like, what do you do about it? And what do I do about it? And so it was really part of processing that was realizing that there is still injustice and there are things that I can do about that. And the other thing was really being okay with mourning the things that I saw. Because part of it for me was no one mourned over those who had died in the Holocaust. Like their families did, but have we really taken time to grieve what happened there? And so part of my grieving process was grieving for those who suffered there, and really allowing and creating space for that. I was talking to a lot of professors, talking to those in the Office of Spiritual Formation, and just learning like how God deals with injustice and his heart for people. So yeah, but I think, like I said, it's still, when I talk about it, it's still very fresh, and I recognize that there are still things to process through, because I don't think it's possible to ever fully understand the injustice against humanity.
And since you've been there, seen it firsthand, seen it yourself, walked in the same places as some of these people did, when you see statistics about it, when you hear stories about the Holocaust, anything along those lines, does it just hit home even harder now? Does it bring back those memories of you putting yourself in their shoes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like when I hear stories, I still see like that little baby doll, and I still think about like the inmates on the wall, or I still can like visually like put myself back in that starvation room that we were in, or I can be back in the gas chambers. And so I think for me, it's like this happened and it's real, and I saw it firsthand. And so really like certain things, like when we're talking about it, like it'll trigger it and it'll put me back there. But I think it was such a valuable experience, because I understand better now how this has affected the Polish culture, and like even just relations between Poland and Germany and just Europe on a whole, like better understanding these, some of the tensions and the relations, just because of what I saw there, and just interacting with people on a really personal level and hearing their stories and how they've been affected or how their families have been affected. And just learning more about injustice in the world just on a whole, and realizing that this great concern that I have for justice really stems from that first experience of witnessing it firsthand in Poland. Because I think that's the first time that I really recognized what that looks like. So yeah, basically anytime I really think about it, I can go back there and think about walking through those streets and thinking of a gloomy day. And realizing that the things that happen there, like though they happened decades ago, it still matters.
We talked a lot about Poland. Let's talk a little bit more about Haiti. I know you have a big passion for it, something you've done multiple times. But let's start with that first trip, how it came about, what made you want to go to Haiti, and just how that first trip went.
Well, I did service learning through Malone my freshman year, and I knew it was great. I didn't travel at all my sophomore year because I was an RA, and so I was really interested in going on service learning again because it had been such a great experience. And two of my best friends were going to go to Italy, and so I thought, okay, I'll go service learning to Italy with my best friends through Malone. It will be great. And so I'm working on the application for Italy one night, and my dad, it must have been a Sunday night, and my dad calls me. He's like, said that this missionary from Haiti, her name was Melissa, had been speaking at church, and a group from church had decided they were going to go to Haiti that summer. He's like, my mom and my dad and my younger sister, they were all going to go. And my dad was like, do you want to go with us? And I was like, okay. He's like, well, because he started off, he's like, what do you think about Haiti? I'm like, I don't know, it's poor. Like, what do you want me to think about Haiti? And so I deleted the Italy application, and I was like, I guess I'm going to Haiti. But it was really appealing just because, like, my whole family was going, and we had never left the country together. And I just thought, like, how cool is it going to be to do this mission work together as a family? I had no expectations of Haiti, like nothing. I knew it was poor. I knew that an earthquake had happened. I knew it was the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So that's pretty much what I expected, but I didn't know what poverty looked like. I don't even know what I thought it was going to be. But I remember the night before we left, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going. Like, I am not getting on a plane. Like, I like my life in America. And I'm like, I was just horrified that night. Like, what am I doing going to a third world country? Like, is it going to be miserable? Like, it's going to be hot? Like, what are the bugs going to be like? Am I going to like the food? Just like every possible stupid concern I could think of. I was just terrified. And I was like, I think at the end of it, I was like, first world problems. So we get on the plane, still pretty terrified. And we are flying over Haiti, and as we are making the descent into the airport, just see a building, it kind of looked like a shack with a red roof, and I just started to cry. And it was really weird, because that was the moment that I realized my life would probably never be the same, and that the things in Haiti were going to break me, because it was going to take me really, really far out of my comfort zone. I was going to see and experience things that I would never understand. And I was going to experience poverty in a way that I didn't know existed, and that was going to have to make me uncomfortable. And I think part of that was I was uncomfortable because I knew that once I knew these things, and once I saw that poverty and a lack of education is an injustice, like, it's not supposed to be that way. And so again, if I care about justice, like, it's going to require a change in me. And so that's like in this small little plane, like, these things are all going through my head, like, I'm not going to be the same when I go back. And we get there, and my mom and your dad and Jeff Miser were there to get us off the plane. They'd been there 3 days early, and we get on this bus, and my mom's like, don't freak out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm already freaking out. There are people everywhere. I don't speak the language. Like, I don't even know what's going on. And she's like, well, the driving's a little insane, but don't freak out. Oh my gosh. Insane didn't even begin to describe what happened. I mean, I've never experienced driving like that in my life. It's pure and utter chaos. But it's beautiful. It's like, it's loud, but it's just a lot of fun. I remember getting off the bus, and these animals are surrounding us, and I was like, I hate animals. Like, I think in this moment, I was like, what? I could be in Italy right now. I think that was part of my thought. And then we walked into that orphanage, and the thought of Italy just completely dissipated. Like, it was not on the radar anymore. And as soon as those first couple kids, Jean-Francois and Carlene, they were the first two that ran up to me. And that was the moment where I was like, like, I don't miss America. Like, the people I love, my friends, my boyfriend, like, they're great, but like, these kids are here. And just completely falling in love. The nights up on the roof, we slept on the roof, and being under the stars and hearing these animals all night long. And watching people carry water and realizing, like, I don't carry water. That was really hard to realize. Just something as simple as water that I take for granted every single day. Or seeing kids who would come up to me and be like, what is it, grangu, like, which means hungry, right? Yeah. Grangu, and they're like rubbing their bellies, and I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, you can't be hungry because I can't help you. And that was just, it took days for me to think. I just remember sitting on the top of the roof, like looking over this place and going, this is not reality. Like, no one lives this way. No one can possibly live this way. Like, and I think for a moment, like, I was like, I just want to go home and I want to forget that I'm seeing this, because it is hard and it's not fair. It is not fair that I get to live this way and these people get to live this way. But it was a good tension, because I realized, like, no, this is how most of the world lives. Like, people live in poverty. Children don't always get to go to school. There are people who are illiterate. Like, there are people who are hungry, who are abused. Like, this happens in the world. And if I come back to America and forget that and want to pretend that it's not happening, like, am I just enabling it? Like, I actually, when I left that trip, like, I thought, I don't ever want to come back to this really, really comfortable, cushiony life and live the same. Because the things that we do matter and they affect other people. And I guess, like, the thing that sticks out in my mind most about that first trip is a little boy named Ruwood. He's now my best friend. He was 4 on my first trip, and this little guy, he was brought to the orphanage as an infant, and his mom came and picked him up, and then they found him after his mom picked him up the second time on a trash pile. And in Haiti, they burn the trash piles, and so this child would have been burnt if the orphanage wouldn't have found him again. And so even as an infant, like, this was traumatic, and a lot of trust issues, and every time an American talked to him, he cried or ran away. But I decided I would be persistent with this little guy just because he was adorable, and it, like, made me sad that, like, he didn't play like all the other ones did. And so the one day I, like, call after his name, I'm like, Ruwood, and he just walks away from me, and I was like, hey kid, like, I want to be your friend. And so, like, I walk with him, and at one point, like, he looks up at me, and I just look down, and, like, I put my hand out, and he puts his hand in my hand, and I was like, we are going to be best friends. In the afternoon, we colored, and he fell asleep, like, in my arms. And from that point on, like, when I would walk in the orphanage, he would, like, run up and give me a hug. And now when I walk in that orphanage, like, he comes up running, yells my name. He speaks a little bit more English, and so we can actually talk. We pray together every time. He plays with kids. He's a totally different kid. And I realized that I will never, ever change the country of Haiti. It's going to be poor, and injustice is going to take place. Like, women and children there's discrimination against them. Like, they are often abused, often don't get to go to school. They're often hungry and work really, really hard, but the situation just doesn't allow for upward mobility. And I can't change that, and I never will. But I can invest in 1 or 2 lives. And hopefully the more I invest in Ruwood, like, he can go out into another village someday and invest in more lives. And so I can't change all of Haiti, but I can invest and work in 1 or 2 lives, and they can go out. And that's how change happens there.
So you mentioned you play with little kids. You watch people carry water. You hung out on the roof at night. Will you kind of go through an overview of what actually happened on the trip, or what, like, a day in Haiti on your trip looks like? Not just how you feel, but what actually happened.
Yeah. So you wake up really early in the morning, usually when the rooster's crowing. So it's like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I don't know. And you go down, eat breakfast. Makila is the cook, and she has, like, the most amazing breakfast ready. And then after that, you go to the orphanage. And usually in the morning you work, just because like that's the only part of the day that it's cool enough to work. And so it can be anything. It might be cleaning, it might be making repairs. That's usually about what's going on. And then you go back to the house for lunch, the team house, which is like a half mile away from the orphanage, so you walk back. And on the walk, you interact with people in the village. Sometimes you talk to kids in the village, or you help them carry their water. You usually have candy to pass out, or gum. And then you go back, eat lunch. Sometimes a little bit of time to rest, just because you've been up for quite a while at that point, and it is really hot, so you're just exhausted. And then the afternoon, it's just really too hot to work most of the time, and so that is playtime. And so that's the time where you get to hang out with the older kids and just have conversations and really get to know them and allow them to get to know you. You play with the little kids. They like to swing, play Red Rover, Duck Duck Goose, whatever it is. A lot of the guys like to play soccer, which is a lot of fun. A lot of times it's Haitians versus Americans. And then you have dinner. On some of my trips, I've gone back to the team house for dinner, and on other trips, I've had dinner in the orphanage with the children. And then usually after eating, there's time for showers, and then you go up on the roof and you do praise and worship, and then you go to bed. And really, there's not much to do after dark because it's pitch black out. There's no lights in the street, and so you really have to just stay in the house. And so really, sometimes it feels like midnight, but it's really only 7 o'clock and you're just ready for bed. So that's really, a typical day in Haiti is just really laid back. There's really no concept of time. Yeah, you just, whenever someone says, I'll be there tomorrow afternoon, like, I don't know what afternoon means. Like, it might mean 10 o'clock in the morning, or it could mean 4 in the afternoon. Like, it just happens. So it's just, there's really no real distinct schedule. It's just your basic, like, here's a general idea of what might happen.
So you've gone on a couple of trips. How are those other trips different from your first trip? How are they the same? How are those other trips compared to that first, after you've already had that initial shock, the initial culture shock, going there and going back? How are those other trips differ?
Obviously, like, when I get there, I don't have the same culture shock. Like, I know when I get there that I'm going to see shacks. I'm going to see people who are hungry. I'm going to see animals everywhere. There's going to be trash laying all around. Like, that's normal. It's what I expect there. And so it doesn't shock me anymore. I think also another really big thing is after my first trip, like, coming back to the U.S. was just, it was a mess. I was a mess. Whereas now, I still miss Haiti so much, and it's so hard to come home, but I'm not in that same boat. Like, I don't hate coming back to the U.S. anymore, because I recognize blessings in both places. And so, I mean, like, the schedule is still the same. It's still the same thing. Get up, go eat, go to the orphanage, come back, eat, go back to the orphanage. Like, still the same routine. The kids are the same. I see the same kids every time, but the relationships are so different. That first trip, they were just cute little kids that I was playing with, and it was great. But now I've established real relationships with some of them. You know, like, I actually, like, get to have real conversations with the girls, more than just, you know, how's school. Like, it's really talking about, like, what they want to do with their lives, or things that they're concerned about when they leave the orphanage, things that really, like, they're concerned with, or talking to them about their relationship with Christ. You know, getting to know the little kids and really learning what they like and what they don't like, and just those relationships have changed. Also, this past trip, realizing, like, I know what the kids can get away with, and they know what they can get away with, but, like, we all know the rules. And so that first trip, it was like, oh, they're cute, like, I'm not gonna yell at them when they're in trouble. And now I'm like, Davidson, you know you can't do that, like, come on. And, like, so there is kind of that, like, making, like, no longer is it just I'm having fun. It is, I care about you and I'm investing in your life. And part of that is making sure you are making good choices, and I'm going to be with you through that making good choices process. And so, like, just those things have changed. Like, those relationships are just, they're more genuine, they're deeper. And because I always know the next time I'm going back, I usually try to go back every 6 months, if not sooner. Like, we've just really established a trust. Like, they know I'm coming back. And I've also made some really great connections with people in the village. More so that first trip, made some connections in the village, but most of my time was spent in the orphanage. Now, like, we've gone to church in a different village, really engaged well with another pastor there. I've met some different people like Kinsley and Sunsun in the village. Like, I know people by name in these villages now, and I've spent time more than just in the village where the orphanage is. Like, we've gone to other villages, and so just really engaging the people that are around me, not just the orphanage. So I think just the relationships are the biggest differences.
You mentioned you went out and you got to go to different churches, not just, and you go experience that. How is church different in a third world country where they are all in poverty? How is that different compared to here?
I don't even know how it's the same as here. I can't think of anything the same. It's just, there's no time. Like, a worship service can go from 2 hours to 4 hours, and the people just, like, they keep going. Like, there's no complaining. And I mean, like, the service usually starts off with music, and that's how people know when it's time to go to church. Like, they just start to mosey in as the music's going, and it is genuine worship. If people are not concerned with what's going on around them, like, they are just totally engaged in worshiping the Lord. And I mean, everyone is praying for one another, and I guess, like, my main thing is just here sometimes you're preoccupied with other things, and I think of, like, what does it really mean to trust the Lord in America? Like, it's a really different concept. Like, when I trust in the Lord, it's like, I trust that God's going to provide for me in this really big thing. But, like, it's like the little things I'm like, do I actually trust God? Like, when I thank the Lord for my food and for providing, do I actually believe that God provides that food for me? Because, like, I know I'm going to have next meal. But, like, when I am there and I see the people worshiping in church, I'm like, this is genuine, and it's unhindered, uninhabited, and, like, that's not the right word. And, like, they trust God for everything because they don't know where their next meal is coming from. They don't always know their next job. Like, they don't know what's going to happen. But they trust that God is in control and that He is going to provide for them. Maybe not in the way that we think of provision, but He's there, and they trust Him fully and completely. And that's, like, the main difference. It's maybe a little bit more upbeat. There's a lot of clapping, a lot of hallelujahs, a lot of hands in the air, a lot of, like, percussion. They have rhythm, and I don't. And so, like, they know how to clap, and I don't. But it's just a lot of fun. And, like, you could be singing the same song for a long time. As long as everyone's having fun and just really engaging, like, just keep going. Like I said, like, time doesn't matter there. Like, what else do they have to do? If they know they're going to be at church, like, that's what they're doing. On New Year's this past year, I was there, and they went to church at 7 p.m., and at 2 a.m. they were still going strong. Like, that's what they do. They go to church, and they are there, and they just really welcome the Holy Spirit, and they go as long as they feel the Spirit moving there.
You went to Europe, you got to see big, beautiful cathedrals. I mean, we have cathedrals here. I'm sure they're not much compared to some of the ones you saw in Poland. What does a cathedral or what does a church look like in Haiti?
The one in the orphanage, you know, it has cement walls, a tin roof. There's actually a fan in there. There are a couple of lights that work when the generator is running. There are wooden benches. There's a cement floor. The one, Pastor Wodor, who is in another village, his is made of tin, whatever scrap wood they could find, a tarp, a couple of lawn chairs. There's a couple wooden benches. The ground is racks. The pulpit is a table that had a penguin's blanket over top of it, and it had one light bulb. And that's what church is there. It's nothing big. It's simple, but I know that God is in that place because He is worshipped, and the people there, they give him their everything. So just reminds me, like, we don't need these big fancy buildings. Like, the church is not a building. The church is a body of believers. And so when I'm in Haiti, I'm just reminded that, like, I get to join the body, like the universal body of Christ. Like, no longer am I a Christian in America. Like, I'm just a Christian there, and they welcome me into that body. And so here's the whole body of Christ working. So it's really cool.
You also said in Poland you got to worship with people who spoke a completely different language, who you didn't understand the person next to you. And I'm sure you experienced the same thing in Haiti. How does that compare from Poland to Haiti? What is it like in Haiti? Just worshiping with someone who you don't understand.
I mean, it's kind of, church in Poland is very much like the church in the U.S. Like, there's a schedule and it's, cushions, seats, and everything like that. But again, like, it's just interesting to hear people in another language praying and realizing they're praising and praying to the same God that I am. And he hears their prayers, their worship, the same that he hears mine. And so this little box I've confined God to that says, like, he cares about me and he hears me, reminds me, like, I'm actually rather insignificant, like, in comparison to this big world. But, like, God loves me in the masses, but he also loves me as an individual. And so I think just realizing, like, God loves me and he loves this person and this person. We're drastically different. Like, I know he heard my prayers while I was in Poland and while I'm in Haiti, but he also hears the prayer of the Polish person next to me or the Haitian next to me. And I think it just reminds me, like, again, here's the body of Christ. And God cares about the church, who is his body, who loves and worships him. And, like, God is not confined by country, by socioeconomics, by race, by gender, by language. And so I think just while I'm worshiping next to these people, like, that's what I think about.
What are some other things that have, I know you've talked about quite a few things that have really impacted you. What are some other things, whether they're just stories that you remember, events you remember happening, things that have really impacted you through these many trips that you went on?
If I'm being real honest, I don't remember Poland that much. I remember, like, the big events, I think, but it's been a couple years. And so probably most of, like, my stories would come from Haiti. It's just the way that I interact with the kids. It's just, like, swinging with Ruwood and just hearing him count in English. Like, it's pretty astounding. Or, oh gosh, I don't know. I guess there's just so many things. I can't even come up with one. And that's really weird. I don't know. Stories in Haiti.
How about another question?
Yeah, I don't know why that's hard.
How has the group of people that you've went with impacted your trip, changed your trip? I mean, I'm sure you haven't went with the exact same group every time you've went to Haiti. So how does the group go with affect the trip that you're having?
Yeah, of course it's been really special to be there with my family. I've been there with my fiance. Like, those are all really special things. To just be in this place and not have the exact same experience with them, but to be in the same place experiencing something similar. And so while we're in the orphanage, we're not always together, but when we go back to the house, like, we get to talk about those experiences, and that's really great. But if I'm being completely honest, my favorite trip was this year at spring break, going with some of my best friends. And I don't know, it was really great. You and Jenna had been to Haiti with me before, so there's only 3 of us that had ever been to Haiti before on this trip, and so there were 9 new people, and, like, I don't know, I guess it was just awesome. Like, this is my 5th trip, and again, it feels really comfortable. Like, though Haiti is really uncomfortable at times, it's really comfortable to me now. It's become, like, it's my happy place. And so being there with new people just brought new life to it. I think of, like, Caleb, who's there, who every time we ate something new, he's like, this is the best bacon I've ever had. And I'm like, Caleb, it's bacon. Like, everything was the best he'd ever had. And like, that was just really fun and exciting. And watching like Kelsey and Brittany and Kirsten and Amanda and Jenna, like all these people interacting with kids that I've known, that I love, like to watch people that I love so much fall in love with other people that I love. Like, that was astounding. And at times, like, it was really taking a step back and just watching it and knowing that all the planning that had gone into that trip, it was worth every second. Like, every stress of like, I don't know how this is going to come together. Like, how are we really doing this? Like, just to watch people just really having their hearts broken for something bigger than themselves, and really engaging a culture and going outside of their comfort zone and totally and completely embracing that. And I think watching them realize, like, our lives here, they're good. We are extremely blessed. But those blessings are not for us to sit on. They're not for us to be greedy and to live really big and extravagant lives. Rather, like, we are blessed to go out and serve people. And I think that's something we've all learned by being in Haiti. You know, we're not all going to be missionaries to Haiti our whole lives. I mean, I hope to live there someday for a period of time. But, you know, not everyone will. But I hope that through those experiences that people realize, like, you know, we have the blessing of education. And so value your education. Pour everything you have into that because God cares about it. But use that education to work with people, to love people, to serve people. And so I think, like, that's what I was watching happen in Haiti this past time. It was just experiencing something with my friends. And since coming back to the U.S., like, I miss the kids in the orphanage every single day. Like, there are pictures of them everywhere. Like, I just am totally obsessed with that place. But I really miss that group of 12 that was there. Every day that I'm not with the group, I just miss them because we had a really great time and we got to experience some really special things together that no one else who wasn't there will ever understand. And so I think that's what's really cool about those trips is, like, there is a bond simply because you were there together, and anyone else doesn't fully understand that experience. Just like, you know, when we were there in March, we did a clinic, and on the day of the clinic, like, a new baby who was a month old came there. And so, like, here's this group of 12 Americans, and here's this month-old baby, and we're all passing the baby around, holding it, and just gushing over DJ. And, like, no one else that I've ever been to Haiti with has seen DJ yet. Like, they don't really fully understand what it's like to be there when a child first comes into the orphanage. And so, or they don't, you know, I can tell you about the kids, but to hear a child come up to you and say, I love you, or say, like, do you love Jesus? Like, those are things that, you know, I can tell you about it, but it doesn't fully make sense until you're there and until you experience those kids. And yeah, so the groups that you're with, it really, really matters. And they're your support system because things are gonna be hard there. You know, everyone experiences this differently, and new experiences can be really hard and overwhelming. And so your team are the people that you go back to that house and you process these things with. And sometimes you laugh with them, and sometimes you cry with them, and sometimes you just say, this is hard and I don't know what to do. And sometimes you just have to say, like, that's okay.
You mentioned you saw a woman carrying water on her head, and just how that hit home, like how people there every day would see that, and that is normal for them. But for you, coming from the outside looking in, how different that is. What are some other things that you saw that would be normal for them to see every day, but really hit hard for you because you don't experience anything like that?
Yeah. I don't know, like little things like watching small children walking to school by themselves. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, where's your parents? Like, this isn't safe. You know, seeing a guy walk his pig around on a leash. I'm like, what are you doing? Cars passing one another on one-lane roads, and they do it with a horn. Or I've seen chickens hanging off the side of a motorcycle. Like, just crazy things. Like, truck full of goats. Seeing people live in tents after an earthquake. Those are the sort of things that I'm just like, what is this? And it's normal. And so, like, that's really cool. Yeah, I think like the things that shocked me, like it's just normal life and that's okay, but it's taught me some really important lessons.
You said, I forget what I was about to ask. What are some of the people, you mentioned Ruin. Who are some other people that have really made a big impact in your life, and that I'm sure you made a big impact in their life?
I think of Shabine. Shabine's about the same age as me. She's about to leave the orphanage, and I don't know what will happen to her after she leaves. And I think about it, and like her life has made an impact on me. Like I have this whole new profound value of education. Like here I am, a female going to school, and I plan on going to law school after this. Like the sky's the limit for me. In Haiti, it's not. Like these girls, like I hope they finish school, but if they don't, like what happens next? And so it's really part of the way that they've touched my life is helping me to realize like the gifts that I have, the opportunities that I have, and sort of value those, and to fight against injustice. After my trips to Haiti, like I have become like full push for like rights for women and protection against domestic violence, because these things happen there all the time. And so like these are the things like the girls have taught me. Magdalene and Crystal are two other girls who this year in March, I'm sitting on their beds with them, they're braiding my hair, and they're like, Amber, can a man hit you in the US? And I'm like, no. Like if a guy hits you, like they do not love you. And I'm just talking to them like what a healthy relationship looks like, what true love is. And it's not violent. What it means to be a submissive wife, but also to tell them like this authoritative like hierarchy that you think is established here, like this is not what God designed. Like God has called husband and wife to submit to one another in love, not because one has more authority than the other. To tell them like you have value and worth in Christ. This person's not going to complete you. And then to at the end say like, what are you gonna do if a guy tries to hit you? And to have this conversation with them, like a 2-hour conversation about this, of something that I'm really genuinely passionate about and is a concern for these girls. And so I think that's one way when I think of this past trip, I think of Magdalene and Crystal, and I pray for them every single day that when they leave that orphanage, they are strong women who will have an education, that they will not fall into this trap of a man who is in any way abusive, whether physically or verbally, that they find men that love and respect them and respect the gifts that they have, because like they have been encouraged time and time again to remember their value. And so that's just one way that I hope that I have touched them in some small way. But again, I think the impact, like I know that I go down there and I impact them in small ways, but the impact that they've had on me is so much greater. And I love those little kids more than anything. Like they're great. I would bring them all home if I could in a heartbeat. But it's for me, I think the older girls have just changed my life so much. Just because again, they remind me like when I'm complaining to no end about a 30-page paper that I have to write, I look at the picture on my desk of Magdalene and Shabine and Mianda and Vanessa, and I remember I don't know what happens to them. They don't have this opportunity, and so I better take full advantage of it, because this is a blessing and this is a privilege that most women don't know. And so I better not throw that away. And every time I go to complain about a paper, I just think, would they really complain about this? Like, I'm eating well here, I'm with my best friends, I'm safe, I'm in school, and the sky's the limit. And so why would I throw that away when other people would give anything for that opportunity?
So one more question and we'll wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
You've went on these trips to Haiti and you've enjoyed them, and they've really made a big impact in your life. Do you have any interest in doing mission work or traveling other places? Is that something you'd even think about doing or something you want to do? Yeah,
I'm not done seeing the world. I would love to go to Africa someday. I just really love third world countries. not third world, developing countries, sorry. I really don't love what's going on in developing countries. Like, I see progress happening. Like, again, like going back to Haiti, like just from one trip to the next, like I see progress happening. I see small little things in their government improving. I see sanitation improving in really small ways, or education improving to some extent. And so I just want to see that, like, what is going on in the rest of the world, like what injustice is happening all around me. I'd love to see Europe again. I love history so much. And so I want to engage in that history again. And so I hope that I have the opportunity again, but I know that I am really passionate about community. And that sounds kind of vague, but for me, it's engaging in the community that I'm part of. And that can be engaging in the global community, but I want to engage in the community in Haiti. I want to engage in that small few people and really invest there. I know that they're also investing in my life. And so this is a friendship and a relationship. And so I would, as much as I want to see the rest of the world, and I have intentions to, and like I said, like after, law school, like maybe I'll have the opportunity there. But I really just want to remain going back to Haiti and continue to work there and work with my friends. And I think it would be really sad to me to think that I couldn't travel anymore. I can't stand to be in one place for more than 6 months. Like, I have to leave the country every few months now. But I do think, as much as I love to travel, I've also learned the value of coming home and the value of engaging in a community where I am and to be present here as well. So traveling is not done yet, because engaging in other cultures have taught me more about myself, about my culture, about things that I think and how that shapes me, how I am socialized by my culture. And so I think by seeing other cultures, like, that gets to change. And I also get to see more of how God works, because I see other perspectives. So yeah, I do not plan on traveling anytime soon.
Thank you. It was great to hear about things that have really impacted your life and those things that you've experienced. Thank you very much.
Yep.